various, habitats.
Yeah, the elite in this country have made a fortune selling us out to China. And now both the media and the Republicans are trying to go after what's been going on, and the government is stonewalling. The New York Times put in a Freedom of Information Act trying to get information about Hunter Biden's activities in China. And they were told, well, the State Department might get around to giving them the information in 2023 because, of course, they don't want it getting out before the midterm elections. By the same token, Republican congressmen and senators who have full security clearance requested from the Secret Service travel documents related to Hunter Biden, and what they got were completely redacted. These are people that actually have the security clearance to get these documents unredacted, and the Secret Service is stonewalling giving it to them.
No, obviously, it's Trump was correct on this one. It's swamp. It's a swamp. I mean, branches of our government entities like the FBI that were once revered are completely corrupted.
It's true. And what is amazing also is that if there had been even a hint of the Trump kids doing anything like what Hunter has done, there would have been congressional investigations. Every media outlet would have been on it. But it's Hunter Biden, he's an addict. We've got to cut him some slack.
No, he's a Democrat. We got to cut him some slack. And we also, speaking of noteworthy Democrats, Gavin Newsom, something out of central casting if you were going to cast a governor or a president, but got the looks but not the brains. He's also disingenuous. He was spotted and photographed at the NFL championship game maskless.
Yeah, not just him maskless, but an entire luxury box full of politicians and celebrities. Now, of course, what's important to mention is that California has a statewide indoor mask mandate. So they were legally required to be wearing these masks. But, do as I say, not as I do.
Of course. Well, not saying spend any more time on any other state, he would be thrown out anyway, such as it is. In the sports world, you have Brady retires, and you had the new logo and name of the Washington football team, previously the Redskins. They're going to be called the Commanders, Dr. Lopkin.
Yes. And I think they did a good job with the name. It's actually got ties to a lot of local organizations in that area. What boggles my mind is what took them a year and a half to come up with a new name. They got rid of the Redskins name a year and a half ago, and throughout a season and a half, they've been going as the Washington football team. Really? It takes you a year and a half to come up with a name.
Do you think Schneider did that, the owner of the previously the Redskins, the Washington football team, now the Command? I always thought that he was doing that to kind of give it, because he didn't really want to change the names. The woke culture forced him to change the names, NFL, corporate pressures. I think he did that on purpose, Dr. Lopkin, kind of an FU to the NFL establishment.
Maybe. I mean, I certainly didn't see anything about that, but personally,
because to your point, you could come up with another name in a couple weeks. It's not that hard.
Yeah, and if he wanted to, really, stick his middle finger up at the people that were doing this, there were better ways to do it.
Yeah, it's just speculating. I'm not sure, but I thought in my mind that the whole Washington football team, and like you said, it doesn't take that long to come up with it. I think it was just a name. It's just a way to give it to the NFL. That's just my opinion. On a more serious topic, we have the whole COVID fatigue. 70% of people have just had it, and that goes along with a Johns Hopkins study that basically, a very prestigious university with strong medical ties, basically more than suggesting, basically saying that the lockdowns, the Fauci-esque approach accomplished nothing except increase suicides, increase mental illness situations, and caused unemployment and economic hardship for the very people that could least afford it. Your comments?
Yeah, well, first of all, let's spell this out because we know the censors over at YouTube listen to our podcast because they've tried pulling us down before. So we're talking about Johns Hopkins University, one of the premier medical training universities. Okay. This was a meta-analysis, it's an analysis of multiple studies that show there was virtually no benefit to locking America down. The studies found that it did not slow the virus. Certainly did not stop the virus. It did cause great mental harm to people who were locked down. It did cause damage to our kids. And basically, there was nothing good that came out of these lockdowns. And this is
the
coming
natural
again.
Question.
I'm gonna repeat this because it bears repeating. This was a meta-analysis of multiple studies from the premier medical training university, Johns Hopkins.
We'll see if it has any impact on the decision making at the White House, but I think it does go. We're not getting into the science, but it does go into the whole COVID fatigue. People have said, we've done this, we've done that, and this is not just, our feelings. I've seen this on many news shows that, people are willing to do certain things for a certain amount of time, but not forever. And I think that's what they're facing now. Deficit has gone up to $30 trillion. Back in the day when I was just a little young pup, I remember that when Reagan was challenging Carter for the White House, he was outraged that the deficit was half a trillion or 500 billion. That's almost a rounding error. That's how things have digressed over the last 40 some odd years.
Well, you also have to remember that the deficit increased by $3 trillion in 2021 alone. This is how bad our government spending is. And you know what? I'm not blaming the Democrats on this one because the Republicans have gotten just as bad.
100%.
When under the Trump administration, the Democrats put forward this huge spending, packages, increasing the deficits, and Trump signed off on it, all well and good. Both sides need to take responsibility for this, especially now that the Fed is not buying up our bonds. They've stopped printing money. They're slowing down on that, which basically means all of the money we owe, it's all being owed to China.
Yes, and also there's, without any question, with the inflation rate increasing, the Fed's going to have to seriously raise interest rates, and we know what happened with that, a la 1978. Looking at, if you will, I wouldn't call it entertainment, The View, Whoopi Goldberg, the girl genius, high school dropout, by the way, for those out there, a real genius. About a year ago, almost a year ago, when Biden came into the White House, she basically said on The View that Dr. Biden would make a great cabinet appointment for the head of that department, and then she basically the chief would make a great surgeon general, even though her doctorate is in education, and then. She also had a real zinger that got her suspended, basically saying the Holocaust was not about race.
Yeah, her comments were amazing to say the least, disturbing to say the most. And it goes beyond what she said specifically about the Holocaust. Because if you listen to her conversation, and again, to give you some background, the conversation was about the graphic novel Mouse, being pulled from Tennessee libraries. And for those of you not familiar with the graphic novel, it's a Pulitzer Prize winning graphic novel that tells the story of the Holocaust. Well, one, she said, yeah, it had nothing to do with race. It was just man's inhumanity to man. But then she went on and she started talking about the fact that, well, it was white people versus white people. So she's out of this. She has nothing to do with this. Is she actually insinuating that white people have no say in what's going on in the rising crime and black on black violence? Is she actually saying that, well, the races need to take care of themselves and we should not be working together as one human race?
No, I actually think what she's really saying is she's trying to minimize the Holocaust, and she's not trying to make it a situation, a tragedy that happened to the Jews. But, it's just stupid white people against stupid white people. I think it's horrific, and I think she should be more than just suspended with pay, I believe, for 2 weeks. What do you think?
Well, the suspension is a bad joke because the whole point behind the suspension is that ABC feels if they get her out of the public eye for 2 weeks, people will forget what happened. I don't think she should be fired because, again, I'm against people on the right being canceled for what they say. I'm against people on the left being canceled for what they say. We have free speech in this country, and that allows people to say offensive, stupid things. Now, should she be educated about how stupid she was? Absolutely. But she shouldn't be canceled because we shouldn't be doing that. On the other hand, though, you have Sharon Osbourne, who was on The Talk, which is basically the same show. She was fired for backing up Piers Morgan's ability to have his opinion about Meghan Markle. Now, he said some disparaging things about Meghan Markle. The media said, oh, he's racist, when actually he knows Meghan Markle. He actually tried to date Meghan Markle, and what he was talking about was his personal experience about how horrible a person she was. Sharon Osbourne got fired for defending his ability to have an opinion. So I really think I don't want to see Whoopi fired. I want to see nobody fired anymore over this bull. We need to have the same standards no matter where on the political spectrum a person falls with their opinion.
I would agree. Speaking of high standards, we have the Squad, the defund police, one of the big pushers of defund the police, a big advocate to that, spent only $325,000 on their own personal security.
Yeah, and that is very telling because if you remember, AOC and one of the other Squad members, I don't remember which one, not that long ago, took to the House floor to push for student loan forgiveness, saying they could not afford to pay their student loans. Well, maybe if you didn't pay so much for a security guard, you could afford to pay your student loans.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe
or spend money on a Tesla.
Right. Spending money to drive a Tesla around. But even more importantly, if you didn't keep pushing to defund the police, you wouldn't need so much security.
But again, it's the common theme: do as I say, not as I do. And I had heard a couple interesting reports. One of them was on the Jesse Waters show about AOC losing relevance, and there was an article on that as well about the person that I think of Indian descent, got her kind of discovered her and worked with her, if that's the right term, for a year, kind of managed her, and then he's out of the picture, and she's just not she's just not getting it done. And then they had another little article in terms of her mental capacity or lack thereof. I know she's a BU graduate, and maybe they should rethink about that. So here's her commentary about her getting COVID.